We've heard a lot about different business models. We've heard a lot about how to use technology and tools in your organization. And I'm delighted to be joined by Michael Welch, who is going to talk to us about his business, blackcircles.com. And what I find really interesting is the way in which this business has approached a problem that we all face, namely tires, and as their business model has rethought how consumers can access those tyres. So I'll just read you a quick biography about Michael. Michael Welch, OBE, is one of the UK's most highly rated entrepreneurs and sold blackcircles.com, the online tyre retailer he founded, to Michelin in 2015, where he continues to provide consultancy. He started his first online tyre business in 1995 in Liverpool, England, when he was 17. And he sold that business to UK fast fit chain QuickFit and then joined them before leaving to launch Black Circles. So I think some really fascinating entrepreneurial insights I'm hoping to get from Michael as well. And in addition to what Michael does he's also an investor advisor with timemarket.com, which is in India, and he's established the Welch Trust to support young people and young people in need of critical care, with a particular interest in supporting adoption and fostering and children with critical and terminal illnesses. So it's going to be a fireside chat. I've got some questions I'm going to put to Michael. I will open up as well if there's some questions later on that you'd like to put to Michael that maybe you'd like to understand more about his business. But I'd like you to welcome Michael to the stage.
Thank you.
Well, Michael, once again, thank you for joining us. It's great to have you here and to really be someone who's pioneered a model which we're going to get into now. But I wonder whether you could just give us a quick introduction to what Black Circles is, how you set it up, and why you set it up.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, Black Circles really was the learnings of a few years in the tyre industry. So I was a tyre fitter when I left school, and it was quite obvious that there was a need for a much more transparent pricing and inventory model for customers. So, you know, the customers invariably get what the retailer wants to sell them in a brick and mortar environment. So I set about trying to build a website that was full transparency on all brands and all tyre sizes. In the early days, it was very much a price and inventory business. So we would win on price, and that was kind of the basis really for the USP. Over time, really listening to customers and trying to understand where their needs were in this market, it became obvious that in a kind of installation environment, they were looking for a better experience. So then we set about a 15-year goal really of trying to build a service proposition from what was effectively a price proposition initially.
Now, a number of people here will have experienced the problem that you solve, which is they need new tyres, and they'll go to the garage and they'll ask for the tyres, and like you say, they'll be given whatever that garage is incentivized to give. How did you manage to get around those incentives which the garages must have to sell a particular brand? How did you get them on side?
Yeah, I think in lots of markets, not just the tyre industry, you've got a parallel grey import market and you've got a direct from manufacturer supply. Really tapping into the parallel imports via the wholesalers was the way we got started. They were, the wholesalers were willing to give us a line of credit, which allowed us to, get a bit of breathing space while we thought about how we generated the next sale. But what it gave us was access to products, and actually, when the manufacturers wouldn't listen to us, we were able to get access to all brands and all tyre sizes through wholesalers, and then over time, really win the trust of the manufacturers, and then break into their rebates and better pricing and economies of scale.
But the local garages, were they on board at the beginning? Were they wary?
It was interesting because, like I said, we started as a mail order website, and it was customers were asking, can we get the tyres fitted? And my time at QuickFit, the guy who started QuickFit, a guy called Sir Tom Farmer, used to kind of curse the independents. He said they were the real kind of pain in the backside of the business, and if some way of kind of getting rid of them, he would. And it kind of occurred to us that if we could create a network of independents and consolidate those independents to provide a service to customers, then we might be able to build something special. Now, initially we were working with tyre fitters, guys who sold tyres for a living, and then we moved the model to service repair centres because they give us a much deeper loyalty than the tyre fitters.
Yeah. Now, the model works now that you can go online and you can find the tyres you want, and then you can go to any garage near you and they will fit the tyres for you.
That's correct. Yeah.
So can you tell us how you went about setting up, sort of planning and sort of scoping that whole user experience, and what challenges you had when you were actually sort of building that?
Yeah, well, I mean, initially I bought I got in touch with Yellow Pages actually and asked them to send me books for all areas of the UK. I then tore out the pages with at that time they had fax numbers in, so I tore out all the pages, manually wrote into a spreadsheet all of the names and fax numbers, and then sent a broadcast fax with an application paper on it. And then over the weekend we got 500 garages said they wanted to be part of the network, and that's how we got started. Then we moved on to okay, we've got a network to speak of. Then we started to build out a team in regions. We started to build best practice, and then we really started to invest in customer service. So things like having public liability cover in place to make sure that if there's a problem at the garages, we could cover that on behalf of customers, and really building out that kind of quality experience as we went on.
So what did the first version of the website look like when you first launched?
Yeah, it was mail order. So you could go on, you put your car reg in, you get your choice of tyres, you pick the tyres, you pay, and then we would send them to your door. And then customers would say, "What are we going to do with them now?" So. They kind of thought they were getting a great deal, and then they tried to fit them themselves, and it was, we had some real kind of interesting stories coming back. So it was, how can we build that kind of last mile? And like I say, my kind of experience was, if we could get the best of the independents and create a network, we could get them to do the fitting for us. So we kind of built that out over time. In our first year, we had 200 guys signed up. Today, there's 3,500 on the Black Circles network. They pay Black Circles a franchise fee. So Black Circles actually makes an income of about 4 million from its network, as opposed to being a cost to the business.
Oh, right. Wow. Okay. And now your website is probably, version 200 or something like that, in terms of how much you've learned. What have been the key things you've learned over the last few years from going from that version 1 to where you are now?
Yeah, I think keeping things simple. I mean, I think there was definitely a we were definitely a temptation to add whistles, bells, and widgets to the site. Kind of try and create a more experiential website for customers. And then actually, when you boil it down, they just want the best price and the best location as quick as possible. So we really kind of at times have had to scale back what we put out there to customers, and then really listen to users about what they want to see and what the experience needs to be. So we've invested probably a lion's share of our investment over the time in making sure the customer experience is right, as opposed to worrying about kind of moving into new technologies, because actually keeping a really simple proposition for customers is key.
Yeah. We've talked a bit about in previous sessions today how to get that customer insight, how to know what customers think. What kind of tools are you using to take the pulse of your customers and continue to make sure they're happy?
Yeah, we just asked them.
Okay.
I mean, I was in 2010, probably earlier than that, we were just sending emails to our customers, and then we were asking them point blank, I mean, what can we do better? Where do you think we need to take our model? We had, in 2003, when we were kind of really just getting started, our online conversion was, under 1%. Our cost per acquisition was about £30, and our returning customers were about 5%. And because we've listened to our customers, today our online conversion is 8%, our cost per acquisition is £4, and returning customers every month for the last 10 years have been 35%. Right. So that's how we gauge whether we're doing the right thing by our customers. So we'll kind of use those metrics to really measure that kind of response. That's them telling us, okay, we like what you're doing, and continue to do it.
Yeah. Now, there might be some retailers here who are thinking that they want to put in place a click and collect strategy. What pitfalls do you have that you could tell them to watch out for, that maybe you've learnt the hard way, as it were.
Yeah. Well, I think for us it was, the whole, that what we call the last mile, we really tried to build it into an experience for customers. So again, try and make things as simple as possible for the customer, and really try and build out some value that differentiates from your competitors. So for us, like I say, we went from being a business that sold cheap tires and shrink wrapped them and sent them to your door, to a business that delivered a whole kind of retail experience from click to fit. So we were very much about, okay, we could kind of really focus on speed, but actually what we really needed to do was focus on delivering quality and a quality experience for customers. And I think, for me, if I look forward 5-10 years, I don't think a quick collect service is going to be enough, for pure play online. I think building out a service proposition that differentiates retail is going to be absolutely key and engenders loyalty.
Yeah. And I suppose you've got the service built into your garages, haven't you?
And that, yeah, and they've been, and to begin with, they're a bit of a pain for us because they were a high cost from the margin, and we were always managing challenges with them thinking we were taking their business, and really some of them not really understanding how we were adding value to their businesses. So over time, we understood, okay, what does the perfect kind of pen portrait of an installer look like? And how can we build out more of them? So over time, we've kind of really shaped and nurtured the right sort of partner to do the installation for us.
Yeah. And what about inventory? Because I'm trying to sort of get my head around where the inventory sits. It's sort of virtual on your side, is it? When someone books something, then you have to make it real through a manufacturer delivered to the garage?
So we started with wholesalers, and that was all drop ship. So we didn't take a single item of stock. We paid the price in the purchase price for that. Over time, we built the volume, and that brought the price down. And we insisted on keeping the inventory in their sheds, not in our sheds, and that effectively gives us a great working capital model. So we would take the cash off the customer, and we'd have 15 to 30 days, depending on who the supplier was, to hold the cash before we recycled it. And then we managed to convince manufacturers to take on the same model, probably within the last 5 years, which 10 years ago they swore blue in the face they would never do. But it's amazing how, the kind of the power of customer sentiment and growth can change strategies for even the biggest, most stubborn manufacturers.
Yeah. Now, in terms of the way in which consumers are using technology, obviously mobile has grown massively in the last, 4 or 5 years particularly. Do you have a mobile app? Is it something that can use as...
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're integrating, kind of technology where we can read the tire and produce a quote from a photograph, for instance.
Wow.
And again, it's really, we're focusing on how can we make that whole kind of click through to fit as short as possible and as quick as possible. But again, we look at what emerging technologies there are out there, and we try and resist temptation to implement new ways of doing things just because it's fashionable.
Yeah.
We want to do what's right for the customer, and that ultimate goal of doing things better for customers faster and giving them more value.
Yeah. Now, in the pre-chat we had earlier on, we were talking about the internationalization. So you're also involved with some companies who are doing a similar business model overseas. I know some of the people here might be involved in the Indian subcontinent. How is it different over there, where mobile is the main channel for a lot of people to order product? Is that a massive opportunity, and what are the disadvantages of working?
Yeah, I'm invested in India as well as in Indonesia, and both, situations are huge mobile adoption, which is a great opportunity. The challenge in both actually is infrastructure. So it's it's the physical bit of moving the tires from one point to another point. But that's really, particularly in Indonesia, that's catching up really fast. So you've got people like DHL, FedEx, and other kind of big multinational corporations literally building out infrastructure to facilitate consumer propositions. So, once that has really kind of found its feet, I think, we're going to see huge adoption of online retail in some of these countries.
Yeah, I suppose that is the challenge, isn't it? Being able to get that infrastructure in place to ensure that you can deliver on the proposition that you set, because it's relatively easy here in the UK, where we're geographically small and we've got great infrastructure, but getting those items, whether it be tyres or any other product delivered, over great expanse.
Well, I mean, our journey from 0.5%, 1% to 8% conversion was a 17-year journey, whereas in some of these countries, the willingness to engage online has been there, and it's kind of, it's ready. So when the infrastructure enables it, there'll be a jump straight to high conversions, and I think people who are in the market will do very well.
Yeah. Now, what about returns? Because that's something which is becoming a lot more commonplace right across online retail. The fact that a lot of people will, my wife included, buy a number of different items, choose when it appears, choose the one she wants, and then send the other two back. It's a massive cost. But does that have additional costs and challenges when it's something that's delivered through a third party like a garage?
I think, we try and manage that as far up the pipeline of the user experience as possible. So to try and be as accurate as we can. Usually returns are due to errors. So to be as accurate as we can, as far up the pipe as we can, in the information that we're giving customers, and the direction we're taking them to ultimately to the purchase point. I mean, the fashion business I'm involved in is a different story. I mean, it's, high conversions are, levels of return are inevitable. I mean, one of the challenges we have in that business really is trying to encourage customers to make the right choice first time, and that again comes with trying to give enough information up front to allow, somebody to make, a medium purchase rather than a small and medium and a large and return 2 of the 3.
Yeah. So any advice here for retailers who are looking at how they might manage their inventory, their stock, particularly with regards to returns? Is there some learnings that you've had as you developed those business? The other business is Atterley, by the way.
No, I'd like to say I had the answer, but I mean, I haven't. I mean, really, it's, again, it's if we've got the right, as accurate an information and a guide as far up the user experience as possible, it usually mitigates some of that risk, but it's inevitable that there's going to be errors.
Yeah. So you've been very much at the coalface of click and collect, almost sort of pioneering that whole kind of model in this sector. Fast forward maybe 5 years now, what do you see as being the next big developments for click and collect, whether it be in your sector or more broadly?
Well, again, I think it's service based. I think we'll see. I think we're going to need to see some of the big, online pure play players and small players, medium players, move into a more of a service proposition for customers. It's going to be about more than price and more than speed of service. In the fashion business, it's going to be very difficult to maintain the pressure on returns, in what can be a low margin business after marketing costs. So, creating a more experiential service-based proposition that engenders the right loyalty and return purchase, I think has got to be the way forward if you want to kind of survive that kind of next 5 to 10 years.
Does that mean brand? Does brand become more important in that world where service is important?
Well, I think your service defines your brand. So I think, inevitably, yes. So it's reputation. It's a reputation with the customers that you have close to you. I mean, we spent most of our marketing money on our existing customers. So we didn't bother trying to go and waste money on trying to, a battle for new customers on a price point. We would invest as much as we could on existing customers and get them to be evangelical about our business to their peers. And it was a slower growth, but we did that on a fairly skinny budget. We raised a few £100,000 and we built a business that at the year we sold it was turnover 100 million. So, but we did that for, over a 17-year period, painstakingly, by winning the loyalty of those customers, and they really brought us our growth.
Yeah. And at the end there, were you using a CRM to manage your customers? What kind of numbers of customers are we talking about for Black Circles?
So, we would have just under 5 million customers. Okay. So we would be all individual customers as well, so no fleets, no corporate customers. And yeah, we'd use we'd use off-the-shelf tools as well as our guys doing their own data interrogation internally. But fundamentally, we would be looking at, okay, in terms of loyalty, how often do our customers come back? How do they rate their experience? What brands are they buying? Are they going through the good, better, best journey? Are they upgrading their products, downgrading their products? And then we could characterize groups of customers and have different conversations with each. And really that kind of level of personalization, we found really a quite successful way of encouraging and ensuring the first purchase next time.
Yeah. At what point in that 17-year journey did you start to build in that level of personalization? And you talked about that sort of analysis of the data. Because I talk to a lot of businesses who even now just still don't get it. They just want to, hammer out a message, try and get the conversions, looking at ROI and no other metric. It sounds like you were quite advanced quite early on, but I'm just wondering.
Well, we couldn't afford to do the hammer out the message and kind of try and club them over the head and make a sale. I mean, it was because that's expensive marketing in a competitive marketplace. So we had to try and understand, okay, we got a sale. What did we do well? How can we replicate that experience for other customers? So, I mean, we were sending handwritten, typed but hand-signed letters to all of our customers from 2002 to about 2005, and to the point I was getting cramp in my hand. We had to stop. So we used we started to communicate by email, but it was from me directly, but it was always about how could we make the customer feel as special as possible and make them feel like they were having a direct conversation with me or with members of my team. As it wasn't a blanket approach to communications at all.
Yeah, it's interesting because what you're talking about is a very personal, one-to-one, very authentic relationship. And we touched upon brand a little bit earlier on. One of the themes that people were talking about earlier on was this idea of the smart fridge. And the smart fridge being able to order eggs or milk almost without you needing to tell it. It just says, oh, I can see you need more eggs, and it gets the cheapest eggs within certain parameters. And in that world, brand becomes less important because all you're doing is really just allowing your fridge to get the most economical benefit for you. But in that same future world, from your perspective, actually the brand and the personal experience and being authentic is still really important. So I wonder, is that just the difference between something which is much more commoditized and your world which is less commoditized? Because
I think tyres are pretty commoditized.
Well, yeah.
But I think that the experience of, I think as humans, as consumers, we like to be in a position to make a decision. Particularly a purchasing decision. Now, if that can be educated by computers, that can be educated by technology to make us feel like we're making a more informed decision, I think that's great. But I can't, I struggle to see a world where we make no decisions, and we might as well just, stay in bed and plug ourselves in. I mean, what's the point? So, I do feel that the winners, and in any market at any time, whether it be the 50s, 70s, 80s, 2000s, whatever, the winners are those that have got the most authentic and most genuine relationship with the customers, and they really mean it.
Yeah.
We've tried to maintain that with scale, and it gets more difficult. So I think if you're fortunate enough to be in a small but growing online retail business, you've got to grasp the opportunity to differentiate from the bigger incumbent players in the market by having personal relationships with your customers, because that's something they can't do.
Yeah.
And if they try and do it, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, really interesting. Now I know one of the hats you wear now is as an investor, so you must see a lot of different types of business model, different sectors, different technologies. Just to wrap things up, what areas are you really excited about in terms of technology or business models that you've seen recently?
Yeah, I think, from a personal strategy point of view, the international opportunities and doing what I've done already in places like the US, which, believe it or not, are way behind Europe, India, emerging markets like Indonesia, all of these places where we basically got, incredible mobile adoption in terms of research and consumerism where it's at, where the infrastructure allows it. But where, you know, in the emerging markets where the infrastructure, when it comes in, it's just going to be such a catalyst for growth online, for online purchases. And then, you know, here at home, you know, again, businesses that really, you know, kind of can bring together disparate parts of a marketplace. So kind of like the black circles, but for different. I was talking to a business last week that does a very similar job for care homes. It's a brilliant business. You know, and they start with the hospital and then with the care home. And actually, because the biggest, you know, the most volume of care home residents comes from the hospital. And the hospital has a really difficult job in trying to find care homes, so they kind of end up keeping people in beds for a lot longer. So they actually pay these guys to find beds quicker. So a lot of their funding is actually coming from hospitals. It's amazing model. So I think, you know, if you look at any market, you look at any, particularly where there's independents and big incumbents, and the incumbents have been around for a long time, I think you can innovate within that environment to come up with some really quite smart models still. I don't think, you know, it's done yet. I think there's still, you know, more opportunities out there.
Yeah. And in some markets, what you're seeing is the initial disruptors being disrupted themselves, you know, with a second generation of companies, startups coming along now and disrupting them.
Yeah.
Any technologies that you've got your eye on which you are interested in? I mean, there seem to be a lot of buzzwords which have been kicking around over the last 2 days here, but any technologies which have got your interest?
I think, you know, kind of photo to data is interesting, you know, particularly in environments, you know, where we're, you know, trying to match, like I say, tire sizes to, you know, to catalogs, and, you know, trying to make where we can make the customer journey easier, quicker. So kind of AI stuff.
Yeah.
But again, you know, I think you're kind of trying to adopt the technology to suit the purpose, and I think there's, you know, we've got there's so much out there at the moment. It's just about making sure what you're matching is good for your customers. It's not, you're not just doing it because it's in fashion.
Yeah, great. Well, Mike, that's been excellent. Thank you very much for all your insight there. I'm going to just open up if anybody has any questions from the floor. Does anybody want to put a question finally to Mike? No, all good? All right, well, I think then, thank you very much. It's been good to talk about all aspects of how you set up Black Circles, and also just to get a bit of an insight into your entrepreneurial journey as well. That's been fascinating for me personally. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks.